Alright everybody, this is absorbency test number 2 in the Ultimate Cotton Crafting Yarn Comparison. This is absorbency test number 2 because the first one, I did it by just pouring water onto a cloth, see how quickly it absorbed, see how much was left, how much soaked through, which was really interesting. I think it's a great representation of how quickly one of these cloths can absorb a spill. And at the end of the last video, I said that I wanted to try and do something a little more thorough, I guess is the best word, where I was talking about making sure to have the same amount of yarn, try and weigh it after it's wet, see how much it absorbed. Anyway, I did try that as I described, and basically that doesn't work with my equipment because of how little yarn I am willing to commit to that. So what I'm doing is still the same concept, trying to figure out how much water these yarns can absorb at full saturation, but it's going to require more math. So what I've done already is I took all the cloths and I weighed them each when they were dry. Then I let them sit in a full sink of water for like 20-30 minutes to fully soak them, and then I gently patted the water out just like this so that it wouldn't be super drippy, but it's still plenty wet. Like you can look at some of these and see how incredibly wet they still are. So I'm gonna now weigh them while they're wet and write that down and try and figure out how much water it's absorbed at a comfortable amount, you know, so it's not dripping but it's fully saturated. And then I'll wring it out, get all the water out, and see how much is still there. And with those weights, hopefully I can do some math to try and figure out what is most absorbent when fully saturated, because the way some of these yarns are, if they're treated with something that prevents it from absorbing the water right away, that still doesn't really reflect whether or not it's overall more absorbent. I mean, if you have a lot of water to soak up, you're going to want the one that has the overall most absorbency, not necessarily the quickest absorbency. So that's kind of why I'm doing 2 tests here, and hopefully between the 2 you'll get the information you need. I'm hoping I will. So I'm going to start with this one. This is the Lily Sugar and Cream. The way I'm weighing them is I'm folding them into quarters here, so it's for sure centered on my scale. So when wet, this is 176 grams. Before it was wet, it was 32 grams, so that's a lot of water absorbed. And I'm just going to stack them in this bowl here. Okay, this is the 24/7 cotton, and I see a flaw in my plan already. I need to be able to wipe the water off my scale, so that's not a problem because it still thinks there's still water here and it's affecting the weight. So hold on 1 second. Okay, so I've got a cloth. I just dried off the scale, and we're going to do 24/7 cotton next. So when wet, this one's 102 grams. When it was dry, it was 25 grams. Let's try this again. Wait for it to zero out. Now we're on Crafter's Secret. When wet, that is 169 grams. When dry, that was 34 grams. One thing that's nice about having the weight on these is based off of the weight and yardage on the ball bands, I was able to figure out about how much yarn each one of these took. Okay, so Scrubby cotton, 122 grams. It was 32 grams when dry. And I'm going to have to reset. I've wiped that off a little hard, and it thought I was -2. Okay. Back at 0. This is Dishy. That's 130 grams. It was at 29 grams before. Got to reset again. It still thought there was 2 grams of water on there. I guess I didn't dry that one off good enough. Now see this one, it was at the bottom of the stack. It's dripping a little, so I just got to give it another little squeeze, make sure it's as dry as the other ones. These weren't sitting in here for very long, so there wasn't a lot of water transfer, but there probably was a little. This was just cotton. It's at 146 grams. It was 28 grams when dry. Okay, this is Lion Brand Re-Up. It is 128 grams. It was 25 when dry. Okay, this is Burnett Handicrafter. Again, sitting on the bottom. I got to give some of these a little squeeze before I put them on scale. Now, notice I'm just patting it. I'm not squeezing it because I'm not trying to remove all the water. I'm just trying to get rid of anything that would drip. Okay, Handicrafter, 158 grams. It was 30 grams when dry. Okay, this is the Hobby Lobby. I love this cotton. It's really hard to tell because that red turns almost black when it's wet. That's 131 grams. It was 26 grams when dry. Okay, we're down to the last two. Okay. So this is Premier Cotton Home. 102 grams. It was 21 grams when dry. I'll put that back in here. Okay, this looks more orange on camera. This is red. This is the Big Twist cotton, which is 119 grams. It was 27 when dry. Okay, so now I'm going to wring them out all the way and see what they weigh. Okay, so Big Twist again. 71 grams. And I'm just going to toss it back here in this corner. Do Premier Home. The difference between how much it holds all together versus after it being wrung out will represent how much water you can continue to clean up if you only have one rag and you constantly have to wring it out. So now it's 52 grams. So that's half of what it was. That actually kind of seems to hold a lot. Okay. Hobby Lobby, I love this cotton. Is 64 grams, also about half of what it was before at 131. And just gotta squeeze it one more time since I may have doused that corner again. Okay. Uh, 76 grams. Overall, it seems like we're starting to see a trend where you can remove about half of the total water when wringing it out. Maybe a little more than that because I'm not factoring in the weight of the cloth and that general stain. Okay, Re-Up, 69 grams. Okay, this is just cotton again. 74 grams, which is about half again of the 146 grams that it was wet. So I'm making you all watch me do this part, but I won't make you watch me do the math, so I'll pause the video again for that. Dishy is 68 grams. It was 130 before. Okay, Scrubby Cotton. 79 grams. Where are you? There we are. That one's 122 before. Crafter's Secret, 85 grams. It was 169 before. Now, to be truly scientific, I would obviously have to repeat this process multiple times, see what the overall averages are for all list. I'm obviously not going to do that. I figure that for most of us, just once is good enough. 24/7 cotton is 66 grams. All right, last one here, Lily Sugar and Cream. A lot of water coming out of this one. Oh, hold on. I had 2 grams on there. So let me zero this out. Oh, go off. Okay. $83 grams. Where are you? Okay, so I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to figure out some math here, and we'll figure out how much water each of these can hold and which one technically holds the most. All right, I've done a bunch of math here, and I'm really excited because the data is starting to tell me things. So first of all, I guess let me just go through what math I did with you guys. So what I did, because I had the weight of each one dry, I was able to go online and find out what the weight of the ball bands was, how many yards in a ball, and figure out the number of yards I likely used in each cloth. I mean, there's a little room for error because, you know, skeins aren't consistently sized. The data they could have on the website could be wrong and not the same per batch, but in general, we're going to say that it is accurate. So for example, when I knit my dishy cloth based off of the weight on the band to the weight on the cloth, I used about 55.1 yards to make that cloth. So then I took the wet weight of each cloth. I subtracted the dry weight to get the total amount of water it absorbed. Then I subtracted the weight of the cloth after wringing out to figure out how much it could reabsorb. I divided these weights of the total amount of water and the amount it could reabsorb by the number of yards used in the cloth, because all these cloths are different sizes, to figure out a grams per yard for how much water it could absorb. So for instance, again on dishy, based off of the size and the weight throughout all the checks, it appears that dishy can hold 1.83 grams of water per yard total. If you're wringing it out, you can reabsorb 0.598 grams per yard. So I did this calculation for everything, and I have a list here. At the top of it's kind of out of order, so I'll just go through the totals. I'll put the full chart on the website and everything. I don't want to bore everybody too much with this, but so total water per yard in grams for Lily Sugar and Cream is 2.66. For the Just Cotton from Premier Yarns, which was the dollar store one, that's 2.4 grams. For the Hobby Lobby, I love this yarn, it's 2.26 grams. Premier Home was 2.216 grams. I was a little inconsistent at where I rounded it, but it's all in like 2 decimal points or more, so we're going to consider it good enough. Crafter's Secret was 2.378 grams. Lion Brand Re-Up was 2.543 grams. Burnett Handicrafter was 2.061 grams. Scrubby was 1.9676 grams. Dishy, 1.83 grams. Big Twist, 1.95 grams. And 24/7 Cotton, 1.65 grams. So the top 5 overall, if I'm sorting it, are Lily Sugar and Cream at number 1 at 2.66, followed by Just Cotton at 2.4, Re-Up 2.543, I don't know why that was hard, Crafter's Secret 2.378, and Hobby Lobby, I love this yarn, 2.26. which if I go back to everything that we looked at, or everything I've talked about so far, Lily Sugar and Cream, Crafters, and Hobby Lobby were 3 of 4 yarns that I called out as having significant size increases when wet, which I wondered if that would have an impact on absorbency. It appears in general that may be correct. The 4th yarn I had called out as seeing increased growth when wet was Knit Picks Dishy, but for whatever reason, it is not as absorbent as the other ones. It's only 1.83 grams per yard. So I'm not quite sure why that one's an outlier. But in general, I would say that that was an interesting prediction because 3 of the 4 are more absorbent. Notice that the one that's lowest on the list is the 24/7 cotton at 1.65 grams. So the mercerized cotton did overall absorb the least amount of water, both total and when trying to reuse it and everything. So it's true that mercerized cotton is not as absorbable, which is great. So that kind of confirms that everything they tell you about mercerized cotton is true and that there's something right about what I'm testing. The interesting thing that I'm seeing at this point is that even though the top 5 overall most absorbent yarns seem to do really great when soaking, not all of them will soak everything up very quickly. Crafter's Secret and Hobby Lobby, I love this yarn, both had water puddling on top of the cloth and didn't soak through correctly in the last absorbency test. There could be a couple reasons for this. So the most obvious cause could be that the way the yarn is treated, there's some coating on it that is going to take several washes to come off. It's just like when you buy new towels, they tell you to be sure and wash it right away to improve absorbency. And they also tell you don't wash it with fabric softener because that reduces the absorbency. So it's possible that after only 5 washes, which is all I've washed most of these dishcloths, there is some coating on those yarns that has not come off yet, limiting the immediacy of absorption. So it's possible that in time, those will improve. It's also possible that maybe it has something to do with the ply of the yarn. Maybe they're plied tighter or something, so it's harder for them to absorb. I don't know. Either way, you guys saw it in the previous video. It was really slow to absorb. So even though they can absorb a lot of water, they didn't seem to absorb as fast as at least I would like. But in general, anything that absorbed at more than 2 grams per yard seems to be fine overall, including, I'll call them runners up because they weren't in the top 5, Burnett Handicrafter and the Premier Home Cotton. The one thing about the Premier Home Cotton, though, is, again, it was one that didn't absorb very quickly. It seems to absorb a lot overall, but, you know, if you try and pour water on top of it or take it to a spill, it's going to take a while to soak up. Not sure what the reason for that would be, because as a cotton poly blend like Just Cotton didn't have that same problem. But Just Cotton also wasn't as soft as the Premier Home Cotton, you know, comparing 2 Premier yarns, one from the dollar store, one from Michael's. There was a difference there. So again, maybe there is something about the way they treat certain yarns to make them softer or make them more workable that is actually impairing their ability to absorb things, at least early on. It's possible that after more washing, that won't be the case. So basically, where we're at on absorption right now is that the yarn that I grew up with the most and that I've used the most, Lily Sugar and Cream, seems to be a very good choice overall. Keep in mind that all cotton crops vary in terms of properties like strength and absorbency, but there are general trends based on region, and Lily Sugar and Cream is one of the yarns that claims to, or that uses cotton from the United States. The other ones are the Hobby Lobby I Love This Cotton, which although slow to absorb was very absorbent. Crafter's Secret, I believe, was in that same boat. I don't have the ball lands in front of me, so I'm going off of memory, but I believe so. And then the Burnett Handicrafter, which was also pretty absorbent, it had the cotton logo on it. So even though it's a Canadian yarn, I think it was also United States cotton. So overall, the U.S. cotton actually seems to be doing pretty good. Re-Up, I think, was from Turkey. Just Cotton, most of the Premier yarns are manufactured in Turkey, so it's likely Turkish cotton, and they were fine. So the ones that were the least absorbent, the bottom of the list here, because let's talk about that next. So again, most of these are okay. We have a few clear winners for mostly speed of absorbency, but the bottom of the list, the bottom four are Red Heart Scrubby Cotton, Knit Picks Dishy, Big Twist Cotton, and 24/7 Cotton. We know that 24/7 Cotton isn't good for dishcloths because it's mercerized cotton. We kind of predicted that from the beginning just because that mercerization process, that's how it works. It increases the tensile strength but reduces absorbency. Big Twist Cotton is a cotton poly blend, so I initially expected it to be lower in the list. I just don't know why the other two cotton poly blends from Premier were not. Knit Picks Dishy was the only yarn that was manufactured in India, so presumably using Indian cotton that I don't know much about, but I know that most people, when they talk about absorbent cotton, they talk about Turkish cotton. Nobody I know of has any specific pros or cons against Indian cotton, but I do know that in this case, Dishy was not one of the most absorbent yarns. The one that surprised me the most that I did not expect to be in the bottom four was Scrubby. I honestly thought that the texture, the additional little strands in the ply, the little bits of fuzz and everything here, I honestly thought that it would make it more absorbent. And the fact that it didn't makes me wonder if it's because it's more tightly plied, or I don't know why. I honestly expected more from Scrubby. Particularly the reuse factor after you wring it out is pretty bad. It's almost as bad as the 24/7 cotton, which is half of Big Twist and Dishy. So the reuse value is really, really bad on that. And I'm not sure if it's just it seems to hold on to moisture more once it absorbs it. And I'm not sure why that would be, but that's what the numbers are telling me. I didn't think it was harder to wring out or anything, and I hope you could see that I think I do wring things out pretty good. So I don't know. So some of my hypotheses were clearly wrong, particularly, Scrubby being more absorbent, being at the bottom of the list. Yeah, not so much. But some of the growth factors for when they're wet, that seemed to hold true. American cotton does seem to do pretty well, and is overall in the top 7. So I have 11 here. There are 4 at the bottom, and then everything from there up is definitely acceptable. But the best one, Lily Sugar and Cream, is definitely from American cotton, and the bottom 2, the top 5, are also for sure American cotton too. And if it's grown in the South, I believe that chart that I had did show that a lot of that was really absorbent. But anyway, don't want to rant it too much longer. I'll put all these numbers on the blog. I will have to retest this after more washes to see if there is some sort of coating affecting some of the yarns or not. But otherwise, at this point, I just have to make cloths in crochet to see how that affects the growth rate, and then also test durability. So I'm officially going to start using these in my kitchen. It's going to take a long time to determine exactly how durable they are, but by actually using them, I'll be able to tell you other things, like whether or not, I actually notice a difference in absorbency, because, okay, so at 2.66 grams per yard at Lily, am I really going to notice a difference between that and 2.061 grams for Handicrafter? I'm going to try and not keep this data in mind. Like, it'll probably be easy to forget soon enough anyway, you know, just as I'm working in the kitchen and everything. But I'll see if it actually is a noticeable difference. Maybe it's not at all. Maybe the only ones that won't be worth using are going to be like Scrubby and 24/7 cotton. Or maybe I'll still notice what we noticed in the last absorbency test, how quickly it absorbed, not how much it absorbed. So anyway, that's all for today's video. Let me know if you have questions, but now it's on to, you know, real life tests of what lasts longest and what do I actually enjoy using. So anyway, thanks for watching.